Thank you very much, Mr. Buddhalingam, Ambassador Saran, of course, friends at CII, friends in the audience. It's a pleasure to be here. In terms of my overall perspective on this subject, as somebody who has been studying China and India for many, many years. Of course, I was born in India, product of India. I've been living in the US for many years. But at the same time, for about 15 years, I have been studying, analyzing India analytically. And also for about 15 years, I have been studying and analyzing China analytically. I go to both countries very often, even though I live in Washington, D.C. This is my 5th visit to India this year. I have already been to China 6 times this year. So I think I know both countries very well. Now, with that just as a personal background, so what's driving us to write this book? We take it as a given that over the next 5 to 10 years, the Chinese economy will be the largest in the world, and that India will be either by 2025, either the 4th or the 3rd largest economy in the world. And so therefore, it's just the gravitational pull of market size and market growth will bring companies from the two sides to look at each other very seriously and actually to work across the Himalayas. So that's number one. Number two, the big observation is that the relationship between the two economies has been driven largely by trade, and in fact, in unbalanced trade with trade deficit from India's side, which doesn't make India happy. And it is, but over the next 10 years, we think that while the trade relationship will continue and become bigger, and probably not become unbalanced anytime soon, but the big development really would be not trade, but investment. And so therefore, that's why the focus on corporate linkages, and in fact, corporate linkages not just selling across the borders, but by planting roots in the other country, making investments in the other country. So that's a second observation. A third observation that I would like to make is that the investment engagement, corporate engagement between companies, of companies in each country on the other side, in the other market, will take place both directly in terms of just crossing the Himalayas, as in the case of an IIT, for example, or Mahindra Tractors, for example, or from the Chinese side like Huawei. But at the same time, a huge story, which is just in the beginning, but will become very big over the next 10 years, we predict, will be actually indirect entry via third countries. Chinese companies are actively on the march to go global and making acquisitions in third countries, often in Europe or US. Example, Geely in car business buying Volvo, or Seni in heavy machinery buying the German pump maker Putzmeister. Similarly, Indian companies are on the march to go global. Obviously, the Tata Group as being the biggest example of that, and Tata Motors buying Jaguar Land Rover. One would never have thought that a car company from India can be successful in China by any measure. Chinese car market is 6 times that of India, and Tata Motors in the passenger vehicle business isn't exactly India's strongest company. And so, that would be the last example one would think of. But Jaguar Land Rover is the fastest growing luxury automaker in China. And so this indirect entry route, similarly, if Geely wants to succeed in India's car market, doing directly under the Geely brand is not likely to be a very promising strategy, but in fact, if they want to leverage the Volvo car brand, the prospects look a heck of a lot better. So these are kind of broad observations. Now just, I want to pick as a closing point, of course, aside, from what's happening at the broader level, the BRICS Bank and so on, a story from today's Financial Times, which is very illustrative. It's a sample of one, but it's a very telling example, which is the Chinese company, and in fact, it's one of the most famous Chinese companies over the last 5 years, a company in the smartphone business called Xiaomi. And the founder, CEO of Xiaomi, Lin Bin, is actually one of the 2 or 3 hottest entrepreneurs in China. He was interviewed by Financial Times, and I picked Financial Times because he might say to the Indian media, out of politeness, if you will, out of courtesy, positive things. But what he says to a Western media could be objective, which is, he said, the reason we are in India is because India is the most important market for us. So that's a Chinese smartphone company, number one. Number two, also a big reality that the Indian government, as Mr. Jaitley just announced, yes, foreign companies are allowed to do e-commerce, sell online, but if you manufacture in India, well, Xiaomi doesn't manufacture in India. Lenovo does, Samsung does. So Xiaomi is not going to have an easy time at all. It's going to be a brutal dogfight. And so, this illustrates companies looking at each other with absolute dead seriousness as the biggest opportunity, but it isn't going to be easy. And that's why this book. If things were easy, there would be no need to write the book. If things were impossible, also there would be no reason to write the book. So that is an opening statement, perhaps?